We are doing audio in the attention economy. My name is Rowan Hamill and I work at AdsWizz. And I speak to agencies and brands every day about investing more in audio. And this is really looking towards audio across commercial radio, podcasts and streaming services, but really thinking about audiences rather than I want this specific spot or show or time of day. With me today is a panel of specialists and agencies, so I'll let them introduce themselves if you can start.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess Bernhard. I'm Group Audio Director at Goodstuff Communications. Been in the audio world for around 14 years and looking forward to talking audio with you.
Hello everyone. Oh, can everyone hear? Okay,
we
good.
can hear you.
Hi, I'm Elise. I'm Director of Group Operations at Radioworks Group. I've been there about 3 years, so that was kind of where I've been mainly audio, and before that I've been across all offline planning and buying, so I'm kind of a bit of from the both worlds.
Afternoon everyone, my name is Dave Ajumobi. I'm the Programmatic Lead at Two Circles, where we grow our clients' revenues and audiences by knowing fans best. And myself, essentially, at Two Circles, I have to define and implement our programmatic strategy from a global perspective, and audio is increasingly becoming an area of more interest for our clients. So I'm happy to be here to discuss this in more in depth.
Happy to have you. Okay, audio in the attention economy. What does attention economy mean? It means that we live in a world where everything is vying for our attention, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, smart TV, what else we got here? YouTube and podcasts. So how does audio fit into that when there's so much things, media's vying for our attention? Did you know that of our time spent with all of these different channels, 30% of that is with digital audio? Or is it audio? Audio. My boss is in the room, I'm like, oh God. But there is a real lack of investment into that. So if 30% of that time, that accounts for over 2.5 hours that we spend every day with audio. You can do a quick hands up. Who has listened to audio today, whether it's podcast, audio? Good, thank God for that. Now, there is a real investment gap where audio investment only accounts for 5% of media marketing budgets, and less than 1% of that goes into digital audio. So what we're going to do today is talk about why people should be buying and maybe what is happening to prevent them investing in audio. But let's start with something positive. Let's talk about why you love audio. Why should marketers be investing more in audio?
I mean, we've just shown that. Everyone's put their hand up today. Well, not everyone probably, but most people have put their hand out today.
Yeah.
It is everywhere. It's habitual. Everyone has something that they choose to listen to. Everyone has something that they are listening to wherever they are. And there's also a lot of discussion points around it. People have very clear views on whether they listen to music and why they listen to audio. So it really does accompany people throughout the majority of their day, no matter who you are, what age, where, and whether or not you consider you are listening to audio anyway. That's why.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's the fact that audio seems to be the only media channel that taps into every type of mood and mindset. So whether that's what you might consider passive listening, or it could be a very engaged format where you're trying to learn or be entertained, or as a form of companionship, or whether that's playing a game and listening to an ad, I think it's the only media channel that you can tap into any type of mindset.
And I think one thing that maybe some people here aren't aware of is that audio is quite an untapped opportunity. There's things like LHF, which is less healthy foods, which have no restrictions currently in advertising on audio, whereas there are more, it's become very strict advertising on TV and digital media. So what is stopping people investing in audio? And Dave, sorry to pick on you. I didn't say you would go in first, but because you didn't get to speak about the last one, I'm going to pick on you here. What is stopping some of your brands, or you're seeing this hesitation in investing in audio?
I think it comes down to two things, and that is, well, for the most part, confidence and familiarity. I think as marketers and as brands that are interested in buying media, I think we are very quick to look at audio in the same lens that we look at other channels. And, so when it comes to seeing results and reports, we look at, impressions, clicks, conversions, etc. And where those results aren't maybe as apparent in audio immediately, because it's a different environment, I feel like brands don't feel like the results are as tangible.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, I think that because in some certain situations, in my experience, for example, I've seen some brands or clients kind of invest in, I'll say, the platform with the big green logo, for example, from an audio perspective, because
Spotify. It's okay. We can talk about them.
because of brand recognition, ease of use, and things like that. But that in itself tells me something, that there is an opportunity to invest in audio, but there's a lack of confidence, and I don't feel like that confidence has yet been equally spread out across the audio ecosystem. And so I feel like once we understand that, we'll be able to move forward. So I don't think that audio is overlooked, it's just not fully understood at this point in time. I feel that that's why we don't have as much investment at this point.
And I think for your clients who maybe are more performance-based, it's that question of, is audio performance marketing? I know that you particularly like this question with some studies you've done recently. I heard you on a podcast talking about audio as a performance channel.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it absolutely is, but it's the hesitation around that instant gratification of seeing an advert and then immediately seeing drive to your website go up. Unfortunately, audio isn't particularly in a position to do that, because you are mostly consuming it whilst you're doing other things. But we would challenge that, and what you're talking about is Radio Centre has just done an amazing study where it does demonstrate that actually, yes, it is a performance media. But just on that, I mean, audio quite often, and I'm sure we're going to go on to talk about it, is added into the mix as opposed to the lead channel. So most of the time when people are actioning an advert, they don't know where they've heard it, seen it, and that, therefore, we can't attribute that sale directly to an audio ad, but it all goes into the mix.
Yeah, I mean, some people might argue that all marketing is performance marketing. It just doesn't mean that you can measure it. What about you, Elise, as an audio specialist? Why do you think there's a lack of investment, or are you seeing something completely different?
I think from my experience, and I have to say in my previous roles where I was essentially account managing, so I would look at the overall media budget and decide how much would go into each channel. And I'm not going to lie, audio would be the last thing that we would consider and the first to be removed if budgets were reduced. And I think... Wait.
Go on.
But I think that was based on... First of all, that was quite a while ago, and audio has evolved so much in the last couple of years. But moreover, I think there's always that boundary where audio is obviously not visually led. And I think, therefore, it's not tangible. It's not at the forefront of people's minds. And it's a bit more difficult for... There's that vanity thing as well, I find, with clients that I used to work with. You want to see your ad on the big screen somewhere, or a 30-second spot in the X Factor, and it's a bit of a vanity thing, but it has changed a lot, particularly since I've started at Radioworks. We're really seeing it's not a hard sell anymore. We have brands that come to us and they want to have audio on the plan. We don't need to try and sell it in, and they're getting braver with where they're spending. And I think it was Radio Centre and Walk released revenue figures, and 2025 audio had the highest ever revenue, and it's just increased basically since 2020. It's at 750 million or thereabouts at the moment, and we expect that to be even higher in 2026. So yeah, I think it's becoming less of a problem.
Yeah, and I think maybe the roles that both you two work in, where you are in the radio or audio bubble, you might be just seeing people that have already come over. Whereas Dave, if you've got, I know that some of your clients are particularly, we've always, Dave works in sports marketing. Yeah. So I'm always like, Dave, your sports fans are listening to podcasts and they will buy tickets to everything. And he's like, but I can't prove it. So yeah, it's a real tricky one when it comes to, but I think when people start to dip their toe in audio, it becomes a bit more like, yeah, I'm in. Just to establish as well, when we say audio, we are talking about podcast, digital, so connected to any like phone or smart speaker or internet connection, but also FM. And I think what's really nice about working in audio is that generally we just want to grow the investment pot as a whole. So there's an overinvestment in some channels, and we'll come to that later. But how has the connectivity changed the perception of the way that brands see audio? Dave?
I think that comes down to addressability, simply because, many years ago with audio, you will only be able to buy audio in regards to like airtime and one single message, so you're buying scale and reach. However, now with the proliferation of the internet and connectivity and things like that, you're more so now buying audiences, which is exactly what brands like the ones I work with, very much sports focused and event focused. We want to make sure that we're reaching the right fan bases, sending them the right relevant messages, and from a creative perspective, because of the internet and programmatic, the different capabilities that come along with that kind of open the doors a lot more to what's actually possible. And so it's really kind of transformed how we speak to our clients about audio and how we try to get them to buy in a lot more. Because they're more familiar with, again, the other media channels that they're more used to, whether it just be display, video, CTV, and things like that. And when we're able to now let them know that some of the things that they can do on those other channels, they can apply to audio, it's a bit more of an interesting conversation. And I feel that allows them to realize that audio can now be a meaningful tool to reach the right user at the right time.
Yeah, I think it can be really good to get people to think about it away from spots and dots, but I have found that it can pose some sort of challenges as well, because in the absence of any reporting, people would just be like, great, I'll just buy drive time, and that's fine. But then I think we were speaking about this earlier. I hope the client's not in the room, but I had somebody come to me recently and they were like, I just want to buy cricket podcasts. And I was saying, well, great, but cricket lovers listen to other things than cricket podcasts. And I think you have some, but there's this whole thing of like, if I can do it, I should do it. Whereas sometimes you just need to be, just because it can be aligned maybe with programmatic display buying, it's still not the same. It's not the same as traditional audio, but it's not the same as display programmatic buying. But are you seeing similar things with your clients?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, they will again remain nameless, but we have a food client that only wants to be around food podcasts, and everybody eats, and people who eat have other interests. So it would be in their best interest to potentially be across travel podcasts or just lifestyle podcasts, so. I mean, we're having this conversation a lot, but again, it's that instant gratification thing, isn't it? You are talking directly to people who are in that market, in that mindset at that point. So I think every campaign and every brief and every budget always does a different job depending on who, what, when, where. Yeah. So I understand, but for goodness sake.
What about you, Elise, for people that are maybe coming from FM buying into digital? Does that bring opportunity or challenges?
Definitely opportunity, and I think it's been really good actually. It's given depth to the standard target audience, going back to basically what you two have both said, in that, say if you were a golf course brand and you wanted to target 45 plus AB males or something, traditionally, if you were looking at linear, you might end up with LBC, classic, jazz. But now that we are tapping into the likes of DAX and Octave and Audio XI and Programmatic, that campaign can look completely different to what it would have looked like if it was just traditional airtime. Your ad could be running across Capital FM, cooking podcasts, puzzle gaming ads. It's giving a target audience a lot more depth, and it's not pigeonholing your target audience to what you stereotypically would assume that they're listening to. And I think that's been really good for our clients, in that you have that safety of going with the likes of classic and jazz, but you are also making sure you're reaching out to people who are not doing what you would expect them to be doing.
Do you think there's fear around buying outside of just the normal stations?
Yes.
Everyone's nodding. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's like this. Everyone is just listening on that or watching. We'll go into that in a second. But it's a very safe environment. It's not the world of. And Lindsay and I, my colleague, we've done a session before where we say, programmatic is not a scary word. There's just you can buy an audience, but it's still across your standard podcast. It's just more of an audience buy rather than a spot buy. Yeah. But there is a fear.
I think the thing is it's like a trade-off. So if you're going to be a bit brave and spend in digital audio, and your ad might end up being somewhere that you wouldn't ordinarily expect it to be, you need to see the data to back up that it's doing what it should be doing. And that's why programmatic is actually excellent, because the level of detail and reporting and data almost kind of proves to clients that you did the right thing, and it was scary, but it's worked out.
And it being in the wrong environment is not it being in a fraudulent or that sort of thing. It's more it being maybe not the most relevant. And I think that is the difference with display and audio. I didn't ask you this question in any of the prep, but any comments?
No.
That is great. Okay, I don't know if anyone was in the session earlier, but there was a session on podcasts and video. And because at the moment, I don't really talk about this a lot, I think it's remiss to not discuss it. But in the session earlier with Flight Story, they were showing that video podcasting is actually not taking budget from or ears away from streaming podcasts. It's actually taking time away from TV and Netflix watching and all of those sorts of things, especially, and you all disagreed with this, in the evening time, between 7 and 11 p.m, that is when people are watching podcasts on their smart TVs. So my question is, podcasts and video, what are they to you? Are they an opportunity? Are they audio? Are they, how does it fall in for you?
I mean, when you said that earlier, it baffled me, completely baffled me, because
there was a whole report with a QR code.
I mean, at what point is that then you're just sitting down and watching an interview on TV? Yeah. How is that a podcast? How are we defining podcasts at the moment? But what I would say with video and podcasting, we are starting to dip our toes into it massively at the moment with our clients. We've got some wicked, super brave clients that have gone first in a few of those things. But I believe it's quite generational. And I mentioned to Elise earlier that there's been a couple of times I've walked around the office and I do see the younger generation what with podcasts, the video of podcasts on their computer, but they're still working. So they are still listening to it. So I would still argue that it is audio first, but that stat about sitting down and watching a podcast baffled me, because I actually didn't know that.
With other people, it being
well, that's
communal.
Lovely to hear, because again, that's audio. I'm going to say audio. That's audio being more community and also being a discussion point as well, because everyone's got an opinion on it of what they're listening and what they're choosing to spend time with. So that's great.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm hesitant to believe that as many people are watching podcasts as we're led to believe. I know that there are reports out there, but I think they're kind of small surveys and they're run by people who want a specific message to come across. There's no industry-wide research that's been done yet to see who's watching podcasts, what type of podcasts are they watching, and how many people are watching podcasts. My hunch is that when that finally does happen, which it will, it's not going to be anywhere near as high as we think it is. I think there will be a very specific genre of podcast that is more likely to be listened to. It's probably going to be the type of podcast where there's a famous person, someone potentially from a visual background, an influencer, or someone famous from TV or film, that's going to be the podcast that's more likely to be watched. But I also think at the moment, we have Maple Street, which is a creative arm of the business at Radioworks. And they're seeing that a lot of the studios that they rent now are kitted out in all the 4K cameras and things like that. But I'm not entirely sure that they're being filmed for people to watch from beginning to end. what we're seeing is that a lot of podcasts being filmed with the purpose of creating short form content to share on social media platforms as a way of discovery, because God knows there are millions of podcasts out there right now, and there's not really any way for listeners to find the next podcast. So I think that, to be honest, that's why podcasts are being filmed primarily at the moment, and less because there are so many people watching them.
What do you think? Do you watch them?
Do I watch? Probably not as much.
Not that we should never go by what we all do, but just.
But I feel like there is a use case for video. I think it's the involvement of video to podcasts is a good thing. We're going to get a lot more attention to audio because of it. I would say, like, what I do feel could be one of my concerns is that because, you know, everyone's kind of infatuated with video, to be fair, if this was a video panel, we'd be shouting and saying video is the best thing ever, right?
Yeah.
I do feel like some people may start to lean in more into the video aspect if it starts to actually showcase a lot more value. And I think us as marketeers need to be in a position where we remind our clients and our brands that the value still lies in audio at the end of the day. You know, that's where the real meaningful connection between the advertiser or the actual podcast and the listener really lies, rather than the video. You know, so I think, to be fair, video is good, but we kind of have to be kind of careful in terms of how we approach video in the long term, because again, audio is where the real value lies.
Yeah, and I think that my hesitancy to bring it up as a topic, but as I said, it felt remiss to, is I feel like if we overinvest into video podcasts, it will just take away from the pot of investment in audio as a channel. And one thing that comes up time and time again is one thing that stops people investing into audio is the lack of measurement. And the less dollars we have going in to audio overall is not going to bring more measurement sort of demand, really, which nicely leads me to my next question, which is about measurement. And do you think that we need to have more measurement in order to have the bigger investments, or do marketers just need to sort of accept that they just need to take a risk and invest, it works? You seem happy to answer.
I'll dive in, no problem. I mean, this is a topic of conversation that comes up all of the time, and I think I mentioned it the other day when we go into PCAs and we're just going in with our radio deck and we're following reams and reams of TV and digital, and then I pop in with 3 lovely slides going, well, we bought those in packs and we delivered those ones, and did it work?
But it does work. I bet everyone can remember an audio ad.
Exactly, and this is where the Radio Centre really does help us. And again, I'm specifically talking about linear radio here, which is, I would say, our bread and butter, and what I would encourage the majority of people to put the majority of their audio budget in, because we do know it works. And when people say it, I mean, quite often my response is, well, I've still got a job, so that's how I know it works. But also because we do have some measurement in Radar, and we do have some measurement with the Radio Centre research that shows that it works. But we are really lucky in that now we can look at, say, radio buy only via digital audio, where we really can track it. So that's useful, because then we can take that and we can prove to them that actually, by the way, they heard that listening to linear radio. So that's been useful. Yeah,
and one thing that I will always say is buy digital audio alongside linear radio.
But
because they go hand in hand, at least you get pushback on measurement. I know, Dave, you do. I mean, it's one of the reasons why. So we sort of have an idea of the lack of investment there, and I know we're about to wrap up. But
I wouldn't say pushback, I would say inquiries.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of partners out there that do a really good job of tracking all types of audio. Even linear, you know, there are brand lift studies. There are clever ways you can use CTAs to make the tracking a bit more accurate, perhaps. But it's hard for us at Radioworks because we're not a part of the overall agency, so we're not hearing, okay, why didn't audio make it onto the plan? But I would be silly to think that it wasn't one of the reasons. I do think, though, that there has to be a level of trust, particularly with linear. And I think people forget as well, with listening to the radio, if you're listening to the radio, you could be listening on a smart speaker, you could be listening on your phone, you could be listening on a tablet, your desktop. If you're listening that way, we can measure it very accurately. So, yeah.
I think that's all we've got time for. I did have some final questions, but yeah, I think we are at time. So hopefully you learned a bit more about audio in the attention economy. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my lovely panelists.
Thank you.